The humiliation. The galactic commerce hub orbited a dying star at the center of neutral space, its crystalline spires catching the last red light of an ancient sun. Inside the main assembly hall, representatives from 47 star systems had gathered for the quarterly trade summit. The hall itself was a marvel of engineering, with gravity fields adjusted for each species' comfort and atmospheric bubbles maintaining perfect conditions for every form of life present. Ambassador Marcus Vale stood at the entrance, taking a moment to steady himself. He was 43 years old, with premature gray streaking through his black hair, earned from 15 years of dealing with alien bureaucracy. His assistant, Lieutenant Sarah Chen, stood beside him, her fingers dancing over a holographic tablet as she reviewed their presentation one final time. Behind them, 4 human guards in ceremonial blue uniforms waited at attention, their presence more symbolic than practical in this place of supposed diplomacy. Marcus entered the vast chamber, his footsteps echoing against the metallic floor. The assembly was arranged in concentric circles, with the most powerful civilizations occupying the inner rings. Humanity's designated platform was on the outermost edge, barely visible from the center where the real decisions were made. As they walked, Marcus felt the weight of countless eyes upon them. Some gazed with curiosity, others with barely concealed contempt, and a few with what could only be described as predatory interest. The Hegemon Prime, a towering figure of living metal named Vex 9, called the assembly to order. Its voice resonated through translator nodes, reaching every being in their native language. Today, the primitive world called Earth seeks expanded trade route access through hegemony space. Ambassador Vale, present your case. Marcus stepped onto the speaker's platform and a holographic projection of Earth appeared beside him. The blue and green sphere rotated slowly, showing its single moon and the modest space stations in orbit. He cleared his throat and began his carefully prepared speech. Honored members of the Galactic Commerce Hub, Earth comes before you with a simple request. We seek permission to establish 3 additional trade routes through hegemony-controlled space. Our current single route limits our ability to trade efficiently with our neighbors and stunts our economic growth. A sound like grinding gears filled the chamber. It was laughter from the Mechanoid Collective. Their representative, a spider-like, construct of chrome and circuits, raised one of its 8 arms. You speak of trade, human, but what could Earth possibly offer us? Your technology is 3 centuries behind the galactic standard. Your ships still use combustion-based thrust for in-system travel. The Zalathi Empire's ambassador, a serpentine, creature with scales that shifted color with its emotions, rose from its coiled position. Currently, its scales were a mocking shade of yellow. We have analyzed Earth's exports, raw materials, basic foodstuffs, and primitive entertainment media. Nothing that cannot be obtained from 100 other sources at better quality and lower cost. Marcus maintained his composure as the criticism continued. Each species took turns pointing out humanity's shortcomings. The Quellian Confederacy mocked their defensive capabilities. The Void Dancers ridiculed their understanding of hyperspace physics. The Crystal Mines found their computational technology amusing. For 30 minutes, Earth's every weakness was dissected and displayed for all to see. Lieutenant Chen whispered urgently in Marcus's ear, but he shook his head slightly. Not yet, he murmured back. Let them finish. Finally, Hegemon Prime Vex 9 raised its primary manipulator for silence. The assessment is complete. Earth's petition for expanded trade routes is denied. Furthermore, the Zalathi Empire has raised a concerning point about system security. Such a primitive species having access to major trade routes poses a risk to all civilized worlds. The Zalathi ambassador's scales shifted to deep crimson, indicating aggressive intent. The Empire proposes that Earth be placed under protective oversight. We will station a fleet in your system to ensure your development proceeds along acceptable lines. Consider it a generous offer. Accept within 1 solar rotation, or we will consider your refusal an act of hostility. The chamber fell silent, waiting for the human response. Marcus Vale looked around the room, meeting the gaze of each species that had mocked them. When he spoke, his voice was calm but carried an edge that made several of the more perceptive species shift uncomfortably in their seats. Humanity thanks the assembly for its time and consideration. We have learned much from this gathering. You have shown us exactly what you think of our species, our technology, and our place in the galaxy. We will not forget this lesson." He paused, allowing his words to sink in. "As for the Zalathi Empire's generous offer, Earth must respectfully decline. We prefer to manage our own affairs." The Zalathi ambassador's scales flashed through several colors before settling on black, the color of death threat. "You dare refuse the Empire's protection? Your pathetic fleet of 40 ships could not stop a single patrol squadron. Reconsider, human, while you still have a choice." Marcus smiled, and something about that expression made even the ancient void dancers pay attention. "The choice has already been made, Ambassador. Not today, not this year, but centuries ago. You see only what we have chosen to show you. Every visiting delegation, every cultural exchange, every technological assessment, you saw exactly what we wanted you to see." Vex 9's optical sensors flared. "You speak in riddles, human. Explain yourself." "There is nothing to explain. Earth withdraws its petition. We will find our own way forward." Marcus turned to leave, his delegation following. As he reached the exit, he stopped and looked back one final time. "However, I would advise all members of this assembly to update their threat assessment protocols. Your current data on humanity is incomplete." The doors sealed behind them with a pneumatic hiss. In the chamber, several species exchanged uncertain glances. The Void Dancer's representative, an entity of pure energy contained in a crystalline shell, spoke in harmonics that conveyed deep concern. That human was not afraid. They are always afraid when faced with superior species. Why was this one not afraid? The Zalathi ambassador dismissed the concern with a wave of its tail. Bravado, nothing more. The Empire's fleet will arrive at Earth within 7 rotations. They will learn proper respect when our dreadnoughts darken their skies. 6 days later, the Zalathi invasion fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Sol system. 412 vessels, ranging from swift destroyers to massive siege platforms, arranged themselves in perfect formation. Admiral Krek 7 of the Zalathi Empire commanded from the bridge of the flagship Inevitable Supremacy, its scales a confident gold as it reviewed tactical displays. The human fleet was already mobilizing near Earth's moon. 37 ships, just as intelligence had reported. They were forming a defensive line, their primitive fusion drives glowing like candles in the darkness. The Admiral's subordinate reported the scan results. "Standard human vessels, Admiral. Titanium steel composite hulls, nuclear warheads, projectile weapons, and basic energy shields. Permission to commence the intimidation bombardment. Granted. Target their moon's mining facilities. Let them see what defying the Empire costs." The Zalathi fleet's weapons powered up, exotic energy crackling along their hulls. But before they could fire, something unexpected happened. Every piece of human technology in the system, from the smallest communication satellite to the largest battleship, suddenly went dark. The lights of Earth's cities flickered and died. The space stations stopped rotating. Even the electromagnetic signatures from their ships ceased. "Admiral," reported the confused sensor operator, "the humans appear to have lost all power. Perhaps an attempt at hiding?" Before Krek 7 could respond, space itself began to ripple. Not the familiar distortion of hyperspace, but something else entirely. Something that made the Admiral's scales turn white with primordial fear. The revelation. The ripples in space grew stronger, emanating from points throughout the Sol system that sensors insisted were empty. The Zalathi fleet's instruments began showing impossible readings. Gravitational anomalies, temporal distortions, and energy signatures that violated known physics. Admiral Krek 7 ordered all ships to battle formation, but the fear in its voice was unmistakable. Then, reality tore open. From wounds in space-time itself, ships began to emerge. But these were not like the primitive vessels Earth had shown the galaxy. These ships were wrong in every way that mattered. Their hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, creating shadows in space where no shadows should exist. Strange symbols covered their surfaces, mathematical equations that hurt to perceive directly. They moved without any visible propulsion, simply existing in one place and then another. Sensor operator, report, Krek 7 demanded, its scales cycling through colors of confusion and terror. Admiral, I count 500 contacts. No, 800. The numbers keep changing. They are not using any known form of stealth technology. They are there, then not there, then there again. It is as if they exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. From the largest of the shadow ships, a transmission cut through all channels. The voice belonged to someone new, not Ambassador Vale, but an older woman with steel in her tone. Zalathi Fleet, this is Fleet Admiral Sarah Blackwood of Earth's Deep Space Command. You have entered Sol System with hostile intent. You have threatened our world with subjugation. You have made a critical error in judgment. For 300 years, humanity has been preparing for this moment. On the bridge of the inevitable supremacy, Krek 7 watched in horror as more ships continued to emerge. They came from inside Jupiter's Great Red Spot, from beneath the methane seas of Titan, from the corona of Sol itself, places where no ship should be able to hide, where no technology should function. Blackwood's voice continued, carrying the weight of centuries of preparation. Every species that visited Earth taught us something. Not through your generosity, but through your arrogance. You showed us your weapons to intimidate us, never realizing we were learning. You demonstrated your shields to prove our weakness, never knowing we were adapting. You explained your physics to mock our ignorance, never understanding we were evolving. The human ships began to move, but their motion defied comprehension. They seemed to phase in and out of reality, appearing simultaneously in multiple positions before collapsing into a single point. The Zalathi Fleet's targeting computers screamed errors, unable to lock onto enemies that existed in quantum superposition. Fire all weapons, Krek 7 commanded desperately. The Zalathi Fleet unleashed their arsenal. Antimatter beams, plasma torpedoes, and gravity bombs filled space with destructive energy. But the human ships simply weren't there when the weapons arrived. They existed in the spaces between seconds, in dimensions folded outside normal space-time. Then the humans returned fire. Spheres of absolute darkness launched from the shadow ships. Where they passed, space itself seemed to unravel. They were not weapons in any conventional sense, but controlled singularities, points where physics broke down entirely. The first sphere touched a Zalathi destroyer. The ship didn't explode, didn't break apart. It simply ceased, pulled into a point of infinite density and vanished from existence. Admiral Blackwood's voice cut through the chaos. We call them quantum singularity weapons. We developed them by studying your own technology and taking it to its logical conclusion. You gave us the principles. We found applications you never imagined possible. More Zalathi ships vanished into nothingness. The fleet tried to retreat to jump to hyperspace, but space around them had been fundamentally altered. Their drives couldn't find purchase in the twisted geometry surrounding them. For 3 centuries, Blackwood continued, humanity has maintained 2 civilizations. The one you saw, limited and primitive, struggling to reach the stars. And the real one, hidden in dimensions you never thought to look, developing in ways you never thought possible. Every piece of technology you mocked, we had already surpassed. Every weakness you identified, we had already overcome. On Earth, the light suddenly returned. But now, vast structures rose from the oceans, cities that had been hidden beneath holographic projections. The moon's surface cracked open, revealing massive installations that had been built inside the satellite itself. Mars shed its red surface like a shell, exposing a world transformed by technology beyond anything the Zalathi had imagined. The primitive ships near Earth's moon, the ones that had gone dark, suddenly revealed themselves to be nothing more than solid holograms, projections designed to show expected weakness. The real human fleet, the thousands of shadow ships now surrounding the Zalathi, had been there all along, existing in parallel dimensions, waiting. Admiral Krek 7's scales had turned gray, the color of defeat and despair. Its fleet was down to half strength and falling fast. The weapons they faced were not just advanced. They were fundamentally different based on principles of physics the Zalathi had never discovered. Please, Krek 7 transmitted, its pride finally broken. We surrender. Call off your attack. The shadow ships stopped firing, hanging in space like dark angels of judgment. Admiral Blackwood's image appeared on the main screen, an elderly woman with white hair and eyes that held the weight of centuries of preparation. The attack is over, Admiral, but the lesson has just begun. Return to the Galactic Commerce Hub. Tell them what you have seen here. Tell them that humanity is no longer asking for trade routes. We are informing the galaxy that the old order has changed. Earth will trade with whom we choose, travel where we wish, and defend what is ours with powers you are only beginning to understand." She paused, her expression softening slightly. "We did not want this confrontation. We would have been content to grow slowly, to join the galactic community as equals. But you forced our hand with your contempt and threats. Now you will live with the consequences." The twisted space around the Zalathi fleet suddenly normalized, their hyperspace drives coming back online. But as they prepared to flee, Blackwood added one final message. "Oh, and Admiral, what you have seen today is perhaps 5% of our actual capabilities. We showed you our shadow fleet because you needed to see it. But there are other things, darker things, that we have developed in the spaces between spaces. Pray you never give us cause to reveal them." The surviving Zalathi ships fled into hyperspace, carrying with them a message that would shake the galaxy. The primitive humans, the species everyone had mocked and dismissed, had played a game of deception spanning centuries. They had learned from every visitor, adapted every technology, and surpassed their teachers in ways that defied comprehension. Back at the Galactic Commerce Hub, the assembly reconvened in emergency session. The Zalathi ambassador, its scales now permanently dulled with shock, delivered its report. The chamber fell into stunned silence as holographic recordings showed Earth's shadow fleet in action, the quantum singularity weapons, and the revealed cities of impossible architecture. Hegemon Prime Vex 9 was the first to speak, its mechanical voice carrying something that sounded almost like fear. "How is this possible? Our assessments, our intelligence, everything indicated they were primitive." The Void Dancer's representative shimmered with colors of deep thought. "We saw what they wanted us to see. A masterful deception. They used our arrogance against us. Let us believe in our superiority while they learned and grew in the shadows." The communication system activated, and Ambassador Marcus Vale's image appeared in the center of the chamber. He looked different somehow, more confident, as if a mask had finally been removed. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Commerce Hub," he began, his tone respectful but firm. "Humanity extends an offer of peaceful coexistence. We harbor no ill will toward those who merely mocked us. Words, after all, are just words. But to those who would threaten Earth or her allies with force, know that we are watching from dimensions you cannot perceive, armed with weapons that exist outside your understanding of physics." He smiled, the same smile that had disturbed them days before. "We propose new terms for trade, equal access for all species, no restrictions based on perceived technological levels, and mutual defense agreements that protect the weak from the strong. Earth stands ready to enforce these terms should it become necessary." The chamber erupted in discussion, but one thing was clear to all present. The galaxy had changed. The primitive humans they had laughed at were gone, replaced by something far more powerful and mysterious. And in the shadows between dimensions, Earth's true fleet waited, watched, and prepared for whatever came next.